Hey, it's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these. I enjoyed a week in North Carolina in Raleigh, and I have to admit, you guys have no potholes in North Carolina. It's an endangered species, but I totally get it. We live in a weather zone that, you know, is conducive to cracks all over the road, and that's just the way it's going to be. Well, this week was rather interesting. It started with an eclipse. Well, we had a partial eclipse because, of course, I left North Carolina before the eclipse, which I could have had like a almost full eclipse down there. So we had a partial eclipse, and I decided to cover it at UMass Dartmouth. And I think they were expecting maybe like 50 people to show up. Well, there's probably quite a few hundred people to show up. And of course, nobody had the glasses to actually look, so it was kind of interesting to see everybody letting other people borrow like the 50 glasses that they had available. So, I mean, as a photographer, you always try to see, you know, to tell the story in a single photograph. And it's real easy to take some of these shots that you see with people with glasses. But the photograph that eventually tells the entire story is the one with people sharing the glasses with the eclipse happening in the back. On Tuesday, driving around looking for stuff, and all of a sudden I ended up at Mass Maritime Academy. I didn't even know. It's one of those things like, do I go left or right? And I decided to go right, and it turns out the new cadets were marching for the first time. Mass Maritime is in Buzzards Bay, and it was real cool to see that. But you gotta look for those moments. Like, here's a photograph, and if you look at the photograph and you just look at it for a little bit longer, you can see their training ship in the back, and then you can see that there's books taking up almost every inch of this photograph. How do you get that close? You just do. It's really cool to see how dedicated these youngsters are, because this is really not the final. They're not cadets yet until they go through the 2-week training camp that they have to do, and this is part of it, is memorizing the stuff that's in that book. Later on, I heard about a fire in Rochester, so I went out there, and you can see the firefighters in the middle of what was a horse barn. And I got there obviously after the whole thing is pretty much knocked down, but there was still stuff flaring up, so the firefighters in the middle. This would actually be the entrance where the barn is, so this is one side of the barn, this would be the other side of the barn. And again, it's just that idea of, you know, start working from your way from out to in. So photograph from out, and slowly as you gain the trust of the firefighters, you get a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer, until you get the photograph that really tells the story. And then you smell like smoke for the next 2 days, but that's okay. The next day I was driving in Marion, and I saw what looked like ants crawling around on a roof. So, I mean, on a photograph like that, the key is that every single one of these guys is at a different stage of their roof removal. And that's what makes it interesting. But the way the dormer is here, and the way that this black, and just a little sliver of green, to create the layers of new to destruction to new again in the future. This was also in Marion, and it was funny because I sat here for quite a while. I noticed a whole bunch of people with kayaks, and the key is, if you see something that has the potential, if you wait long enough, maybe it'll happen. And sure enough, after being here for quite a while and photographing other people walking by with their kayaks, this woman pulls up with a car, and this guy comes out of nowhere and helps her take the kayak out of the boat, out of the top of the car. I have no idea why so many people are kayaking over there, but it just makes for an interesting composition, the way that it's laid out with the colors and so on. Today, the National Park Service celebrates their 101st anniversary, and they decided to have a little birthday party with cake. And it was kind of cool because I had two friends of mine, Muffy and Carol from Quincy, part of the South Shore Camera Club. They happened to be stopping in New Bedford, so I took them on assignment with me, and it was great. It's really heartfelt to have people come down to visit you and to look at your work. My show's still on exhibit at the Whaling Museum, so thanks to you guys for coming down. And again, like a photograph like this, it's the whole idea of telling the story. Everything from the way that after she cut it, the knife is upside down so that it wouldn't ruin the cake, I guess. And she's putting all these slices on here on the table so people can enjoy it. And these two ladies dressed up in 1850s costume is pretty cool. I mean, if you guys don't know New Bedford's long history in whaling, well, then you probably should come down here. So that was my week, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.